question for today is, why are there so many languages in the world? Which might seem a strange sort of question, but if you can answer it or get an idea of how to answer it, it helps you understand what English could be doing in the world. So, how many languages are there? A quick answer, it's more than 6,000. 6,500. So it depends on what you call a language, since many cases are of language families and then of languages that are cognate and very similar to each other. And so when is one language different from another is a question we won't go into here, but just accept that it's above 6,000, which is a lot. Considering that there are, let me see, in the United Nations, 193 countries, and then we add Palestine and the Holy See, and we get 195 countries. Obviously, there are far more languages than there are countries. So you can't just say, oh, we have a language because we have a country. Or we can't say, oh, we need a country, therefore we have a language. No, it's not going to work like that. You have, obviously, countries where there are many languages spoken, and you have people who speak many languages. Notoriously, English speakers don't, but we'll look at that in a minute as well. Think of Europe, and think of how many languages in Europe how many countries in Europe only have one language being spoken in them predominantly, that is without co-official languages or minority languages of some significance. And you go around, I invite you to do this, and you'll find that just about every country has other languages operating in it over and above the official or national ones. The exceptions are notoriously Iceland, because it's very small, and Portugal, which is also, let's face it, fairly small. Okay, and the rest, go and investigate, have other languages operating within them. Now, why should that be? Why? If communication were everything, if our only purpose in using a language were to get information across to the other side, then surely we should all have one language, and it should be as clear and as technical, as standardized as possible. And this is what's called the buffaloes down by the lake theory of language. Why do we have language? Okay, we're in caves, the men go out to hunt, the men say there's buffaloes there, they have to tell each other where the buffaloes are, and they do that, and they convey information, which tells you a lot about the way men still use language. If that were true, if that were the whole deal, then there's no reason to have so many languages. Okay? There's an alternative theory of language, though, and it suggests that the higher apes developed language as an extension of what's called grooming. I take this from Robin Dunbar. Grooming is when one ape looks after another by going through their fur and pulling out burrs and bits of grass, and otherwise just caring for the other person. An extension of that care is whispering things and saying things as you do to a little baby. You speak to a baby. What are you conveying information to the baby? No, you're using language as a part of a caring operation. And that caring for each other, obviously it's a more female theory of language, that caring develops into language as a mode of identity in that I belong to this group of people who speak in this way, and we like to speak in this way because we care for each other in this way. Interesting, isn't it? Think about why you use, perhaps you're from a village or a town in Catalonia, and you have a way of speaking that's only spoken in your town and village. This is the case around us here. And people like to do it. Why? Because they're expressing identity. Why do people like to express identity? Because it builds up and restores and renovates and repeats the relationships between people who will help each other. Why do the higher apes care for each other? Because that way, if they're under attack, they know who they're going to defend. They're going to operate as a group and as a part of group defense mechanisms. Why do people in a town speak that way? So they can support each other and defend each other. Why do people speak Catalan? Let me think about that one. Okay. All right. So you've got these two things going on. For the second, it's not just about languages, but it's also about the way you use languages. Now, go back to when you're in school, let's say age 10, 11, 12, 13, when you're forming your groups, pandillas, and you've got to be in the cool group and not in the cool group, etc. And one of the ways these little groups form and are maintained is by developing language, often through parody of teachers or of other groups, or bringing in new expressions that are considered items of group membership. Now, we've all been through that, and we all accumulate that. So when we say, I only speak English, for example, for somebody from the United Kingdom or the United States who tend not to learn other languages very well, often they only speak English, but they will speak the kids' English at school. They'll speak the written kind of formal English that they need. The kids' English among groups in the playground at school, and then they'll speak another kind of English in the classroom in order to pass exams. And they might have another kind of English for the various domains in the church, in the family, etc. Okay. So even though people may speak just one language system, such as English, they can still have this principle of using different varieties of it, different kinds of language within it for different purposes, often to express identity. The two principles to accept here are, one, there are very few one-language countries, that multilingualism is a general case, and two, it's Labov who says that there are no single-style speakers, that everybody who speaks a language can speak it at different level for different purposes and for different domains. And that these principles together help us explain why there should be not just so many languages going on in the world and being maintained in the face of global English, but also what's happening within English itself. Even though people in English don't speak many languages, they speak different kinds of English for different purposes. I think we can then explain the number of languages as this playoff between two forces. The one force is for global communication and standardization. Okay, and we do have standardized languages and we do have lingua francas. There's no doubt about that. And the other is the need for language to express identity for certain basic anthropological reasons. Often you have these two reasons being expressed in language policy, for example. Many countries will have an official language, that is the language that has to be learnt correctly and is written, and it's the language of the laws, and usually of parliamentary debate as well. And then they'll have as well national languages which express identities. A classic case is Paraguay, which has Spanish as its official language, and then Guarani as a national language to express the local identity. Now, where the first reason fails, that is, where communication systems are not developed enough to give you the need for a widespread standardized language for conveying of information, where that fails, then the second reason comes into its own. So, wherever there are impenetrable jungles or lots of mountains, was going to say islands, but sea communication has been very efficient in the past. You will find many, many languages. So where are the most languages found? Well, in the jungles of Zaire in Africa and in the highlands of New Guinea, where communication systems are very difficult to establish. There, the prime function of language tends to become community-based, identity-based, and we have the maintenance of extreme language diversity. So, why are there so many languages in the world? Because we have these two opposed forces. What's going to happen in future? Who knows? I don't think it's the case that just one language will kill all others. Why? Because there are many other forces at work. And information giving, and lingua franca, is only one of them.